Well, hello. I have no idea how I was supposed to start this. Uh, so the only thing I can say, is just hello. Um, I'm Kushi Nada Kirijo, or Kushi as everybody calls me. And I'm just going to give a few helpful hints on tanking. Now, I am by no means a master of the game. I'm no Final Fantasy XIV master. I'm not some big shot. I'm just someone who likes to play the game a lot. And I just want to give, some helpful tips on, certain things that you may not know that may have eluded your thought process. Because everything in the game is like pretty simple. I'm not going to sit here and tell you things that are simple. I'm not going to tell you the potencies of certain attacks and stuff. I'm not going to tell you what abilities do unless you ask me directly. I'm just here to give you information that you might not know and then showcase this in a dungeon so that way it'll make more sense. So, big tip number one with Warrior, your beast gauge here. So say you're doing your combos and you're building your beast gauge, you're using your infuriates and whatnot. You're building everything up. You're doing your combos, you're getting all of them off, and you hit 100. At that point, stop. Please, when you reach 100, no matter what, use your beast gauge. Because the last thing you want to do is have this get any sort of waste. You don't want to waste any beast gauge because that's damage that you could do that would be wasted. So make sure that you're not overcapping on that. Another big tip. Thrill of Battle is actually a heal. So whenever you use Thrill of Battle, you see how you heal for 1500. So when you're healing for that 1500, you can actually wait for the effect to leave, or you can click up here to cancel it. But you keep the HP that is restored. So if you just pop it and then click up here to get rid of it, get rid of the buff, it's just a free 10% heal. So, relatively it's pretty good. Another thing, your charges for Onslaught, that always needs to be ticking. This needs to be ticking at all times. Upheaval needs to be on cooldown forever. The moment you see this, your upheaval or the AoE version, which is orogeny, you can keep only one up here so that way you can monitor the cooldown. But the moment that it's ready, you need to use it, because there's no reason to not use it. Like, you can use it in between GCDs. And always make sure that your, not equilibrium, but your infuriates, make sure that those are always on cooldown. Make sure these are on, make sure basically anything that is dealing damage or increases your damage is on cooldown. The only thing that should not be on cooldown all the time is your mitigation abilities. Now for mitigation, this is a big one, and I'm going to keep this simple. So mitigation is not additive, if that makes sense. So if I use Vengeance, which is a 30% damage mitigation, and use Rampart, which is 20% mitigation, these are not stacking. I may be getting maybe around 35, maybe 40% mitigation if I stack these together, because mitigations don't work like that. Now, debuffs and mitigations do work like that, or shields and mitigations work like that. So if I were to use Reprisal, which would lower the damage dealt by enemies by 10%, and use a mitigation, that would add together. Or if I were to use Bloodwetting or Shake It Off along with a mitigation, so if I shaked it off and then activated this, that stacks. So it basically makes the shield have this effect and this mitigation. So that way it's harder to pop. Another thing to do is to always make sure that when you're first leveling and you're gearing things, to always have at least 2 mitigations up and ready whenever you're pulling like several enemies and you don't feel comfortable. Only pop 2. Do not pop any more than 2. If you're popping more than 2, you're wasting something. But only pop 2. Just in general. That's the rule. Remember the Star Wars rule, the rule of 2. For the Sith, it applies to your mitigations. You need to only have 2. No more and no less. Another tip. Please use arm's length. Arm's length is a mitigation. It creates a barrier that stops you from being hard crowd controlled. So like hard crowd control, quick synopsis of it, is anything that displaces you or moves you from one spot to another. So anything that pulls you in or anything that blows you away, like knockback. Now Warrior has 2 of these, and you can actually use it to cheese certain mechanics. In fact, the most current Alliance raid, there is a mechanic where you have to get knocked into certain areas 3 times, and Warrior can just activate inner release and just stand there and not have to do the mechanic at all. So definitely take advantage of it, because you get the full effect for 10 seconds. So all stun, sleep, bind, heavy, and knockback and draw-in effects are nullified while that's up. And arm's length does the same thing, so you could technically do it with any class in the game, because almost any class has this or the equivalent. This would be the melee version, and I believe the magical version is referred to as Surecast. Let me check myself just to make sure that that is correct. And yes, Surecast is the same thing. It does last only for 6 seconds, but that's a story for when we're going over spellcasters. Right now we're talking about Warrior. Big rule about Warrior, I guess I would say, you know, besides, you know, the basics that I gave, make sure that your stance is always on. And also, whenever you start boss encounters or whenever you're pulling packs, basically the mobs in between, you know, your boss battles, always use Tomahawk, because it grants you extra enmity and makes sure that the enemy will not hit one of your teammates, so that way they can make sure that they're not being hit. Because again, a good tank is a tank that not only is maintaining good, like, you know, damage mitigation, but someone who can control the flow of battle to make sure that their team always survives. Shoot, there's not really much to Warrior. It has a lot of healing. So, you know, if you ever want your healer to feel useless, I guess just play Warrior, because Warrior at level 60 basically is immortal and can't die, because the moment you get your hands on level 60, you get Raw Intuition, which will lower damage taken by 10% for 6 seconds, and every weapon skill that you use, which is your GCDs, will heal you for 400 potency. And it doesn't say it on there, but it restores 400 potency per enemy hit. So if you have like 10 enemies on you, that's like 4,000 potency of healing, so you full heal off of one hit. Basically, you can't die. And then Equilibrium is the 1200 potency on top of that. And then once you hit level, right here, 84, you get the augment for it, where it becomes enhanced, and now it has a heal over time effect, which is basically another 1000 like potency of healing over time. Shoot, that pretty much is, you know, mostly all of, you know, how Warrior mostly functions. Just basic tips and stuff, because I'm not gonna go into, you know, really sharp detail. And then also make sure that whenever you feel like you're in danger of dying and you can't heal or anything, just use home game and pray that your healer is paying attention. I actually did have an instance literally a little bit ago where a healer wasn't paying attention and just almost let me die. So yeah, definitely keep that on your hotbar. And also keep a limit break on your hotbar and sprint on your hotbar, because a tank that has sprint and is running around, sprint is basically to make sure that you're clearing the dungeon as fast as possible. And there are certain trials and certain raids that require you to use the limit break as the tank, otherwise everyone's gonna die. So make sure it's on there, but don't push it, like, because you don't need to be ever using the limit break unless it is 1000% necessary, or unless you're about to die and you're the only one there. So we'll do one of these dungeons right quick. I'll pick a level 61 because I did try to do one earlier and then I realized heavy spoilers, so I don't want to give any spoilers. We'll do one of our favorite ones, which is actually the Siren Sea, or rather the Siren Song Sea, because this is actually one of the better Stormblood dungeons. It's one of my favorites actually. So while we're waiting, I will actually just very quickly go over some other things as to why knowing this information, even if you're not playing a tank, is helpful. A big thing is, how do I put this? White mage, scholar, and astrologian, as well as more specifically white mage. I mean, I know sage is kind of in there too, but not really, because sage works with warrior really well, because the trade-off with sage is that you do a decent amount of damage, and you've got really a lot of mitigations, but in return you don't really have a lot of healing. You just have to mitigate the damage, because again, the difference, and I'll say this one time, even though this is a tank ramble, the whole thing is that, more specifically, pure healers are the actual healers, and the barrier healers are not necessarily healers, but they are damage preventers, which is why they have mitigation that stops people from taking a lot of damage. Does that make, hopefully that does make sense. Not sure if we're gonna get this dungeon like really quick, so I might just pop a 50, 60, 70 and then just hope for the best. Hopefully I get one. If it's a spoiler, I'll end this. If it's not, then we'll actually go ahead and continue, just so that way I can show a little bit of what I'm doing. I'm not sure if I'll actually get one though. Hopefully though, it should be quicker than usual, because tank queues are usually, no, the tank is the one that's in need right now, so I figured the tank would get it. Well, I guess we're playing the waiting game while we just sit here. Actually, while I'm sitting here and waiting, we could probably go over some of the other tanks as well, to explain the nuances and the differences, I guess, between them. Because again, warrior is more of the really self-sustaining one, where you press this button and like the healer is like completely optional. You don't need a healer because you heal like more than what the healer could ever do for you. Like, a warrior will actually out-heal a white mage. Like, as strong as white mage healing is, it will never be as strong as warriors, because warrior will overheal itself like crazy. And not even intentionally. They just do it because it's just a product of how they function. Let's go over an extra one here. We could go over Dark Knight. I feel like going over Dark Knight though won't really do anything though, because me and Dark Knight have a lot of problems with one another. I like the job and I like the way that it functions, but I guess we can go over that more whenever we get into the Dark Knight portion, but for now we're just going to focus on Warrior, because we did get one of these to pop. Or not, you know, we can not get one to pop. Hopefully they're awake and they're not asleep, just so that way I can show off some of the knowledge here. It's just little stuff, it's not anything that's super special, because again, I'm not a master at the game or anything. But I'll just go ahead and, yeah, it's a 50 dungeon, so it's perfect. Alright, so we'll just go ahead and put our teachings, you know, all the info that I gave here into what I'm doing. And we activate our arm's length here. As you see, there's a slow effect, and that is in of itself damage mitigation to stop them from hitting me as often as they would if they didn't have that, which makes, you know, makes them die faster. Activate Berserk here to make sure we get our damage off. And like that, clear. And again, remember, start off boss fights with Tomahawk, let the boss come to you, and then run in. So that way you guys are in the middle of the arena instead of way over there. Now I don't have my gap closer, so there wasn't really a choice there. And don't be afraid to use stun, because you can use stun to actually skip mechanics. Well, that is in earlier content you can. There's some where you can't. Interrupt. And there's not really a need to explain this, because he's gonna die before it really even matters. I didn't have another interrupt, so I just stunned him out of it, so that way he can't do it. There. Again, don't panic because your health is low. Make sure you maintain your basically your complexion, or rather your what's the right word? Not complexion. That was completely used in the wrong context. Maintain your composure and don't freak out just because your health is low. If anything, you need to pay attention, because a healer that's maintaining your health being low, more often than not, is going to get you over the healer that doesn't. Because a healer that tops you off all the time is going to probably be worried about you. Again, the boss, Tomahawk, let them come to you and then go in, so that way you guys are in the middle of the arena. It makes it easier for the melee to start dealing damage. Because it's going to look really bad, and I'll actually explain after this, so that way it makes more sense too. I'll explain that one in detail after the dungeon. But as you can see, like, you know, I'm doing everything that, you know, I say. It's not as if I'm giving information that I don't use. Make sure I maintain control of the boss. Make sure you respect the content. That's what it's referred to as. By respecting the content, it means respect the boss being able to deal damage in doing mechanics. Because if you don't respect the mechanics, he's gonna kill you. Because no matter how good you are, you can die to like dumb stuff. I've seen legends, the ones who do the ultimates, the ultimate savages and the ultimate raids, they'll die to dumb stuff that like someone who's a sprout would know, because they don't just respect the content. Respect the mechanics and follow them. Don't be afraid to greed if you can, but respect the content. Otherwise, you're gonna set your foot really early into an early grave. Right, this is pulling a lot, so I'm gonna prep 2 mitigations. Again, they're not additive, but I'm gonna make sure that I'm dealing damage. Oh, the healer's actually dead. The healer is dead. So see, this is what I was actually talking about. Stuff like that. There's not really anything I can do either. I don't know what happened to the healer there. I'll probably have to look back. But I think they were in the middle of one of the AoEs and they just got slammed into. But you see, that'll be what happens. But the DPSs were able to take care of the rest. That's terrible though. But you see, I did everything I could on my end. I probably could have waited for my home game just a little bit longer, and I probably would have lived. But I popped it because I saw that the healer had died. And I was like, oh, well, let me go ahead and make sure home gang is up and ready, you know, before I just drop dead. But, I mean, it happened at the end of the dungeon, so it's not that big a deal. It's literally the last boss. That's right here. Alright, and again, remember, Tomahawk, let them come to you, then you pull into the center, boom, and then you're set. Interrupt, stun, just to make sure she's not doing anything. You have to do DPS to this thing as much as possible, because the more health it has, whenever she absorbs it, it turns that HP into damage with Blood Rain. You know, we need to DPS these down. If we don't, then it can result in a party wipe with the raid-wide damage. So we'll survive this one with Blood Rain going off. And then here comes the second one. Again, don't cap. Always make sure you're not capping on... Ooh. Yeah, she's gonna drop. Oh, we might die. They're gonna die. Because they didn't do the mechanic. They didn't DPS them in time. I'm gonna do all that I can though to try to do as much damage as possible. Forgive my niece and nephew, they're being obnoxious. I'll do everything that I can here though. Dang, I can't do anything. I couldn't do anything right there. Free 10% heal. Oh yeah, that's a dead. But you see, that's what happens when people aren't doing the mechanics. So I did everything I could on my end, but you know, if you don't respect the content, this is what'll happen. And I'm not blaming them now. Don't get me wrong, because they may have forgotten this dungeon, or they may not know the mechanic of the dungeon. That's not 100% on them. That's the whole purpose, is to learn, and that's why, you know, I'm making a series like this. Is that I do want to learn, like, more and more. Like, I learn, because you'd be surprised what I learn every day. Everyone has the opportunity to learn. And hopefully this is the clear that we'll get. I'll pay a bit more attention so that way I can make sure that I'm doing what I need to on my end, while they're doing what they need to on their end, and I'll actually start marking things too. Tomahawk and bring them in. Infuriate. Make sure we're getting everything that we can. Interrupt. Stun. Oh. Nice. I didn't expect the second interrupt. So we need to make sure that he gets DPS down. But we need to all save our, like, burst windows for that last one, because after this one, she's gonna draw in just the sentry, and then she's gonna spawn 2 servants. Then she'll spawn 1 servant, and immediately she'll try to go for them. And if we don't immediately go for them, we're gonna die, basically. So I need to save up everything that I've got, pretty much. And then what'll happen is when she does that, I'll stun her, so that way we can buy ourselves some time. There. So they're down. And normally I would use Berserk, but I need to save both Berserk and both of my Infuriates to DPS the last maid servant down. We're still not going to overcap though. Do not overcap. Because you know, who knows, we might actually kill the boss, like, before we get that far. So the moment I see... No. Oh, she's invulnerable to it. We're going to die. Again, because they didn't do it. They still didn't do it. But I'll do what I can on my end to try to make this a bit easier. So that way I can take as little damage as possible. I'm doing what I can. I don't know if I'll be able to though. I don't think I'll be able to kill her. I'm doing what I can though. It's really that's a killer. When you take the void attack with nothing. That part. Yeah, what they're saying. I might do that. I might do it though. I don't know. Because I know I'll live, but the problem is after. Yeah, see? There's not really anything that I can do. So we're like, this is the learning experience. This is what you do here. Alright, try number 3. Well, we're at 32 minutes. I mean, this is the learning experience here. Alright. Pull them in. Because, I mean, I'm doing damage because my damage isn't really very high, to be honest with you. Well, I was expecting the other interrupt. It didn't happen, though. That's alright, because that'll be more stuff saved. There's 1, and then last 1, 2. Yeah, I didn't get that. Yeah, this is an example of where having high DPS is actually detrimental, because if everyone's doing too much damage, she will actually just kill everyone. And then now we'll be able to actually clear because now she's not half dead. So that's a clear. Easy. And then I'll use that reprisal to lower the damage, make the healer's job a bit easier. Free heal. And free clear. Alright, took us a bit, but we got it. Alright, free GG's. But yeah, we got there, and that was pretty much it. I guess technically that's Warrior. I don't know. Feel free to ask any questions, you know, if you want anything in detail, but, you know, that's just mostly the basics, because going into anything too detailed would require a more in-depth look and me to have like a script and stuff. But without that, this is what you get. Oh, so I guess hopefully you guys have a good one, and I will see y'all. Excuse them, they're being weird and obnoxious again. But hopefully, I guess y'all have a good one and take care.